Hi everyone, this is Jaylene Diaz, and today I have special guests Ambar Castro and Danny Manzano. We are here recording another episode of our Apple Tower Talks. So Ambar and Danny, I have recently heard through a lot of birds that there's been a change in a legislation lately. As of July 1st, there was a modification to the Condo Rider. Tell me a little bit about why there was a change in the legislation in the first place.
Okay, I have an answer for that, and it's very simple. It's Surfside. The tragedy that happened here in South Florida triggered a lot of alerts, not only on the county level, on the city level, but on the condo levels. So people, the condominiums started being more careful about what was going on because the county and the city required them to go through inspections, and they realized they had a bunch of violations, okay? Those violations, after realizing that, they saw that they didn't have the money in reserves because they never planned for that. Wow. So what happens after that is that there's a special assessment. So whenever there's a special assessments, people started, now we're seeing that whenever we go into a closing, there's special assessments that need to be paid off. And this happened after Surfside. And this has triggered a lot of legislation changes. But I think the answer is very simple: is the tragedy in Surfside.
And I think what's important to mention about the special assessments is the fact that we're not talking about $1,000 that's impacting somebody. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in cases. I've seen the $5,000 one, but I've seen the $40,000 one. I even know of one that was $152,000. So we're talking about big chunks of money. So that's definitely one of the reasons why it's so important.
Yeah. Right. And that all can affect the closing, whether it's going to happen or not. Yes. Whether or not who's going to pay for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit, before we dive deeper, what is a condo rider? People might watch this video and have no idea what we're talking about.
So a rider is a generic term for an addendum. And when you sign a real estate transaction, you use your format, your as-is residential contract. There's a series of attachments, riders, addendums that you can make part of your original contract. And that's actually in your main contract. There's a paragraph that you select. So when you select the condo rider, what you're doing is that you're including everything in the rider as part of your main contract. And that's super important because the main contract has no language addressing any issues regarding the condominium. And there's a lot of things that should be part of your contract. For example, if that particular condominium gives approval for a person to purchase there and issues a certificate of approval, you want there to be a contingency that if you're denied for whatever reason, you don't lose your deposit. Something that's completely out of your hands, so you don't want to have to lose your deposit for something that's not really on you. So if you have the rider, those are some of the things that are there that protect you. If for whatever reason it's in a condominium, you ask for the approval and you get denied and you didn't have the rider, you lose your deposit.
Wow, what a risk.
It's a huge risk. And there's other things in the rider that are introduced as part of your main agreement because it's in the rider. So you should not be purchasing in a condominium without your condo rider filled out.
Okay. In your opinion, what are the biggest changes that have been made in this new modification?
Well, there's definitely a lot of new text. A lot of it was to make it easier to read. There was some language in the previous version that was confusing and actually created issues at closing for the parties. But I think one of the most important ones is that now a buyer has 7 days to review a number of documents that they used to have 3 days for. So now it's 7 days, and they have access to more information. And they want to have those 7 days to review the documentation, and they can actually cancel the transaction within those 7 days. So once you receive those inspection reports, once you receive all of those documents from the condominium, if there's something there that you don't like, that you don't feel comfortable, you think it's unsafe, you can just go ahead and cancel. So definitely the 7 days. Also the access to more information. More documents. Now you can request the last 12 months of the minutes in the board meetings, the association meetings, and there's more detail into the inspection reports. So those reports that are going to say whether it's a safe structure or not are an obligation that the seller has to provide. One of the text changes was that it used to say something like, buyer is entitled to. and then now it says seller must. So it's put that burden, that obligation on the seller to give all this information to the buyers for their protection in the end. So definitely. And I think special assessments that I know we're going to talk about had quite a huge change. I think the paragraphs are now completely different than
in a good way.
Well, I think Danny and I have different opinions about
Let's
that.
talk about that right now.
I think we have different opinions because, I mean, do you want to go ahead and start? And then I'll tell you that I don't agree.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we should actually tell the people that are watching us is that on the Condo Rider, there's also language that's introduced as to who pays for special assessments. Okay, and now it's very, very clear as to who pays for the special assessment. Okay, and one of the issues that we were having, that we've had for many, many years, and we've been talking about why is this not part of the Condo Rider, was the fact that there were buyers that were assuming special assessments, and this were not, $500 special assessments. These are $30,000, $40,000 special assessments that get paid in years. Okay, so those buyers were assuming those payments. And the old Condo Rider didn't have any mention as to that the parties have to go to the association, because there are some associations that do not allow the buyers to continue paying those special assessments.
Why not?
Well, it's in my opinion, it's a matter of the way that the condo associations financed the renovations that they did. So most of these condo associations don't really have the reserves in cash. So what they do is they go to a bank and they get a loan. In that loan, whenever there's a transfer of a particular unit, there's a due on transfer. So that particular unit has to pay its portion of the assessments once it's transferred. If it doesn't get paid, then it's a reason for default of the association on the bank loan. So they obviously don't want that.
That's a title talk on its own. Yes. I have a lot of questions for that.
Definitely.
Okay.
But then, yes, in the previous text, the main issue was that it gave the impression that the parties would decide if the balance was transferred or not to the buyer, right? That it was a decision between you, seller, me, buyer, what we did. But the money doesn't belong to the seller or the buyer. It belongs to the association. So the only one that could have decided yes or no was the association. They weren't part of the agreements. And then when all of a sudden someone had to pay it in full at closing, the $152, the $3,000, or the whatever amount it is, then that was critical for the transaction. Now it's very specific. So I agree that they definitely cleared up. They have the one article or item that says if it was due on the effective date, and then you choose who pays for it. There's you check if it's the buyer or the seller. And there's another one that says if it comes up between the effective date and the closing date, and then you check who it is. And that's a great one, because we have had files where after the effective date, right, the contract already happened. Everybody thinks that they know everything that's happening, but surprise, there's a special assessment that nobody knew.
Which is normal,
right? So that one is clear. Someone needs to check it, because they need to check all of the boxes, right? So it's already checked as to who pays for it if something comes up. The part where Danny and I don't necessarily agree is that it used to say, seller discloses all of these levied special assessments, which means that already exist, that I'm already paying for. And then it referenced the last 12 months, right? So if in the board meeting or in the association meeting it was discussed, theoretically, the seller has the obligation to disclose it. And then there was another really special one that used to say, and if the seller doesn't disclose it, the seller has to pay for it. That disappeared. And then, so Danny says that it's clearer now. And I think that that's going to create a whole new set of issues, because what happens when somebody doesn't disclose? In a perfect world, nobody has bad faith, but not really a perfect world. So I don't know. I have my reserves.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, what they did, they placed that burden on the buyer. So they made sure that the buyer does his or her due diligence to ensure that they covered everything with the condo association, because part of the things that the seller is now required and the buyer may request is the agendas, the minutes of the past 12 months. So before, the seller wasn't supposed to disclose that. Now the seller is supposed to disclose it as long as the buyer requires it.
Okay. So this is a huge benefit for the buyers. Theoretically, they are able to obtain as much information as possible beforehand so that they can make the choice, which is a benefit for them. But the burden is solely the responsibility of the buyers and the sellers, which is what is the association trying to do, is from what I'm understanding, right? So good if a buyer is proactive with obtaining the information. How does it affect parties involved, agents or sellers in more?
Yeah, well, definitely there's more responsibility and there's a huge amount of documents that now need to be provided. So something that is happening now is that not all associations are up to date. So when an agent has a file and they're trying to get all this information to give it to the buyer, it's not necessarily available. So there's that. And I have actually a question that I've received a lot in these last few days after the new Condo Rider template was effective is, well, who's responsible for reviewing all of these documents? Because typically the buyer says, hey, agents, what do you think? Or tell me where to sign. And then the agent says, am I supposed to assume that responsibility of reviewing the 12 months and all that good stuff? So I have a theory that somebody is going to come up with a service soon. I will charge a fee of whatever amount to review all of your condo documents. Right, because that's going to become a thing.
People that have no idea what even this is, they don't even know what they're reading.
How do you know? That's exactly it. Definitely when you see the minutes, if you're reading them properly, you can identify if something is going to come up, which is kind of the point, right? If 6 months ago they said we need to change the elevator, but we still don't know, we're still looking through quotes and we're still not sure what we're going to do, they're going to change the elevator.
Got it.
So eventually that's going to happen. The part that I'm iffy about and curious to see what's going to happen is what happens after closing when that special assessment that nobody really noticed comes up. And that's the part that I think is a little unclear. Hopefully people will be proactive in reviewing all of the paperwork. Sellers will have great faith, and I'll say good faith, and give all the information that they have available at the time. And if anything, buyers are more prepared when they assume these responsibilities. Because after closing, you can't really do anything. With the 7 days, if I receive the minutes and I see that there's a special assessment that's going to come up soon, the $152,000 one that I just heard of in Aventura, I can say, well, this is definitely not the property for me because I'm going to owe $152,000 additional than what I'm already paying. Yeah. And then within my 7 days, I cancel. Right. But there's that kind of, in my opinion, gray area of what happens when all of this occurs after closing. Who's going to be responsible? I'm sure we're going to get calls.
Yeah,
somebody's
we'll find out.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get calls. Jaylene's going to get a call from a buyer saying, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah. Just like the taxes.
Just like the taxes, yeah. What do you mean the taxes went up? Yeah, exactly. So I think it's an interesting time because as with any changes, legislation, contracts, whatever it is that's new, it takes a minute for everybody to kind of wrap their heads around it. The associations now need to come up with paperwork that they're supposed to have, but they might not. So now they have to comply. Yeah. Now I'm sure the regulator is going to enforce the new regulation, but you need to give them time to put it all together. So I'm not sure how quickly everything is going to be ready.
Yeah, it seems like there might be case scenarios where deals will probably fall through because of the lack of documentation that they'll need.
Yeah. Yes.
For the time of
that is correct. And one of the reports, right, the ones that are inspection reports, one of the changes that they actually did in December. So the rider has suffered many changes in the last year, September, December, and then the last one now in June that's effective the 1st. But when they made the changes in December, they changed the language. So milestone reports have always been on the rider. Nobody noticed it, but they were always there. But then now it says, seller, tell me, is the association required to have the report? Are they required and they have it? Are they not required? But then it also says, or are they required and don't have it? So I'm going to assume that many people are going to say they don't have it, and then deals are going to fall through because they don't have the inspections at all. Why?
Question mark.
Yeah.
Question mark, of course, because it's a safety issue. It's not a money issue. It's
Yeah.
a physical human safety issue.
Yeah, and
that
unfortunately, a tragedy had to happen for
Unfortunately.
things to kind of get put together, which would have avoided a lot of issues, you know, from back then. But hopefully now it's for a good purpose.
Of course. All of the changes eventually have their positive. It just takes a minute for everybody to be able to get on the same.
Do we presume that it may change again? We don't know.
Well,
Maybe
I mean,
tomorrow.
well, kudos to the Florida Association of Realtors because they've been hearing us. They've been hearing what the issues that we're having. Not only us as a title company, but the realtors are having a lot of issues. And I'm sure they had a lot of disputes there as well. So it's kudos to them because they've been listening to everyone and making the changes. So I hopefully they just adapt to what happens in the market. You know, if it means another change, then so be it.
So before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you want to bring up?
Well, I think it's very interesting. It's like the first paragraph on the new version of the rider. It's that it specifies that if the property is part of a master's association, a homeowners association, meaning other than the regular condo association, that a separate attachment is required. So HOA has an HOA disclosure, condo rider. So it's a different addendum, but it requires that separate one. And it goes even further saying that if that one property has more than one condo association, you need a rider per association. So they're all over disclose, and over disclose. I thought that was interesting, and that's actually another complaint that I've heard from agents that now they have to fill out more paperwork. But in the end, I do think it's healthy. So I think
agree.
it'll be good.
I completely agree with you. The best thing that can happen in any real estate deal is transparency and disclosure.
I agree.
So I think with all the changes that have been going on, I think we're moving towards that. So I'm really, really happy with the changes. And I can't wait to see them come in and see them implemented 100%.
Yeah, thankfully, we have realtors that trust our work and our dedication, and we have been doing this for many years. So we are available on all the calls that we are going to be getting. This is going to be a transition that's going to take time. So patience is key. But like you said, disclosure and transparency is the number one thing that's going to be able to take us to the execution that we're looking for. So our recommendation to realtors that haven't closed with us before is to
Close with us.
And whether you've closed with us or not, if you're a buyer's agent, please don't be creative. Do not fill out the rider. If you are the buyer's agent, you need to let the listing agent fill out the paperwork, or the seller. Do not become liable for all this information that you don't have. And if you're a listing agent, just be proactive. You know, you're trying to sell the home. So go to the association, get all the information, and have it ready so that when you do have an offer, you can just go ahead and close out all those contingencies. Those 7 days can start, and then your transaction can kind of move forward in a smoother manner.
Yeah. So from what I understood from there, the listing agent needs to be proactive in making sure that they have the documents when they need to, so that they're ready to go and get the contract. What the buyer's agent needs to do is know that they need to ask for them.
Correct.
The buyer's agent and the buyer need to be the ones requesting these documents, because if they don't, then it's not the listing agent's responsibility to automatically assume that they have to provide to them. Correct?
Well, they mark everything. So they want to be proactive in following up. We want to follow up, follow through kind of thing. I do recommend to agents, buyer agents specifically, to always reach out to the associations regardless to confirm information.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, we've had files where the listing agent gave some incorrect information or had something old, and then the buyer's agent relies on that, and then a problem happens. So they shouldn't be filling out the rider, and they shouldn't be providing the documents to their clients. That those should come from the seller. But I do recommend double checking. Giving the association the call and saying, hey, do you have this? Do you not have this? How much am I paying? Can you transfer the special assessment balance and all that good stuff, so that the last minute it's not a surprise.
Okay. So Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this content. We know it was a lot of information, but information of value. We're here to provide you educational content, funny content. Follow, like, and subscribe. Get to know us a little bit more, and we hope to see you on the next Apple Tower Talk.